Welcome back to Health Hangouts with Amanda. For any of you who are just joining us for the first time today, this video series is primarily about spreading strength, hope, and love to those of you who are struggling in the pandemic, who don't know how to ask for help or don't have resources to reach out to. Every day for probably the last 35 days, we have posted one video interview, and that is going to come to a close as of this Sunday or Monday, because basically the provinces are allowing phase 2 to open up. Every province is doing something a little bit different, but we will be in BC here anyway on Monday. A lot of the businesses are reopening, and we're going to just see how phase 2 goes. Some are suggesting there's going to be a second wave, and that is to be foreseen. We're not sure. So what we're going to do with the Health Hangouts video series is we will, as of Monday, we'll stop posting daily videos. However, I am interested in continuing the series just on a more scattered basis. If anybody is interested to be interviewed, we are going to continue this on an ongoing basis as people show up in the woodwork. So please do reach out if you do want to be interviewed, but that's kind of what's happening at this point. So today we have Kevin Kozakewich with us from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Kevin and I just met moments ago, and we were connected through a mutual friend who lives in Winnipeg. And so it's just, well, this is what I love about digital communications, because I just got a text message this morning and she said, hey, you should talk to Kevin. And I was like, oh, get Kevin to contact me. And you phoned me right away. And here we are this afternoon. And that's just amazing to me. I just love, I love the connections and what we might be able to create together, you know, with our mutual connections along the way. So, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Kevin comes to us as an entrepreneur, but I'm going to let him tell you who he is and what he does. And then, of course, as everybody would, you know, who's been watching these videos might know already, we're talking about the impacts of the pandemic personally and professionally. So Kevin, take it away, and then I'll just ask you some questions.
Sounds like Kevin Kozakewich of Northern Exhibits, a physical branding agency. We work with 35,000 North American suppliers, helping them with all their physical branding needs, whether it's trade show displays, promotional products, apparel, signs, displays. And so what we do is a client will send us an order. They'll tell us exactly what they need, whether it's, let's say, you get some cups, you want a logo on it, we get that. We get the design, send it off to one of our manufacturers who can manufacture and print cups like this. They'll ship them in. We test them all out, make sure they all work, package them up, and deliver them to clients. And depending on what the order is, we've done it as quick of turnaround as 3 days. Sometimes it, depending on the size of the order, it can be as much as a month. But yeah, that's what we do.
And can you brand anything, like from T-shirts to, like, I don't know what all the things, like, you know, of course, water bottles. I'm looking at my desk and I'm thinking, like, okay, pens, you know, you can brand anything that people want.
Yeah, literally anything. I mean, it depends on how you want it branded too. I mean, certain products have limitations. You have a glass window, you're not really going to print on the window, but you can put a really nice decal on it, transparent with a full color logo on it. And then we work with a whole bunch of different companies across Canada, such as University of Winnipeg, agriculture, pharmaceuticals. So quite the diverse amount of businesses that we work with. So pretty much everything.
That's amazing. Well, good for you. Well, you know, down the road, maybe if we need anything branded for our company, right, I can just call you up and say, you know, let's put an order in for, I have no idea. For some reason, I just thought of like bouncy balls.
Yeah,
to play catch with when we can have
or strength balls again. Too.
Strength balls. Oh, that's so
exactly
awesome. That is so awesome. I love that. Well, you know, I might just actually do that. I'm going to talk to you about that. Great idea.
Thank you.
So yeah, so you were saying before, you've been an entrepreneur for a decade, but you've been in this particular business for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And can you just verbally spell out what your website is? And we're going to post that on the write-up when we post this video.
So the website is northernexhibits.com. It's NOTHERNEXHIBITS.com.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll put that on there, and then people can just click on that and contact you directly in the event that they want to do some business with you. So that's great. Now, as far as business wise in the pandemic, how have you and your team been affected by that?
So a lot of businesses end up structuring their business trying to make it function towards basically they're like, this year's going to be the best year, this year's going to be the best year, and every year something ends up happening. It's either rainier this year or it's drier this year, farmers aren't doing so good, or something's off anyways. Employees are taking too many vacations. You never end up knowing, just something always happens every year. You lose your best employee. And so a lot of businesses, they end up struggling year after year because they just build a business where it's only survivable in the best times. With Corona, however, for us, we've actually seen an increase in business. And this is mainly because, while there is less customers, physical branding, places still need signs to have signage everywhere about the coronavirus. So decals like crazy, and signage like crazy, printables, advertising to let customers know that their business is open and still functioning. And so we've actually got an increase in orders in this particular area. Now, of course, there is naturally a decrease as, let's say, like trade shows, festivals, a lot of these bigger events are canceled. But at the end of the day, it all balances each other out. A lot of people have time to now sit at home, focus on building their businesses. So we're now working with a lot of new businesses too, as well as helping businesses restructure the way they're doing everything to do things differently. So we've been keeping everything fairly busy in that time as well.
Right. Absolutely. Actually, I was at a grocery store right before this interview, and I looked at the sign, and it was a sign about not, like, we are not accepting reusable bags, like we'll offer free plastic bags or whatever, and a lot of chains are doing that. And I thought, like, even like this company has had to produce numerous signs of this kind, and there's signs everywhere, with their brand on it. And, I guess some people can just print those with a printer, but this particular sign was a manufactured, like, and they did a good job. And so that's what you do. So that's really cool. I just thought, like, yeah, so business must be booming that way. I wonder when the pandemic started, and when I say it started in different parts of the world at different times, back as early as, I guess, January was don't quote me, but reported to be one of the first cases. When it came down to when, in Manitoba, when we weren't allowed to go outside anymore, when you guys we had to stay at home, were you concerned? Were you worried at all about what would happen with the business?
To an extent, because everyone has a natural fear of change, and also another fear of not knowing what to do. Changes happen. The future is not as predictable as anymore. Now we got to figure out what to do. Now, the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is you're paid equivalent to the size of the problem you can solve given time. It's basically a mathematical equation. The bigger the problem that you can solve within a certain amount of period of time, the more you can earn. Now, I'm not necessarily doing it just for money. There's all these other things, but it's just, when you have a huge gray area in front of you and you have no idea what to do, all you got to do is, the answer is solve some problems. And so it's literally as simple as that. Everyone around you is confused. You said, okay, how can I help others? Let's identify a problem they're having, and let's figure out how to solve it. And so long as you build a business functionally and structurally as that, then at the end of the day, regardless what's happening in the outside world, as long as there's problems to be solved in this world, you just change and adapt, and you create a change and make towards a better future.
Right. What I've been hearing is, a lot of folks, one of the reasons that I would say, okay, hang on. The biggest reason I created this this video series was to reach out to those who are, laying on their couch crying, throughout the day. And believe me, like, that was me in the first 2 weeks. I was not doing well. But that had a lot to do with my own personal losses, as well as I had a business, a brick and mortar business, that we had to close the doors on as a result of this. And we were powerless in that, right? And so I thought, like, I need to do something different so I don't become depressed. And so I don't allow my anxiety to get out of control. And something you said a few minutes ago was that you're noticing there are new businesses that are coming forward where they're repurposing, for example, what they were doing before. Some people are starting new businesses digitally. And so, you know, of course, without sharing any names, just what has that been like for you to watch how the world has really pushed us to transform from this in-person type of way of operating and being to digital?
So something exciting is watching the businesses adapt and change, and where they're successful, where you see a vodka distillery here start producing hand sanitizer when there's a huge demand for that, and that's exciting. It's seeing clothing manufacturers locally producing face masks. And so if you find an opportunity and you work towards it, move and change, you're able to stay alive. But in a place where there's a lot of change, a lot of tried and true business owners, focusing on a business model that's worked for a long period of time and that's all they've ever known, and they don't necessarily know how to change because they've never needed change, a lot of those ones are particularly suffering. And so those ones, it does make a lot of heartbreak. I mean, myself being from the trade show industry, in the trade show industry, when you're having a trade show booth, almost every single other person at convention there with you is a business owner. And when that's their living, is just going from trade show to trade show, and now all that's closed this year. There is no trade shows, there is no music festivals, and all that is canceled and closed. Well, then that's just simply a lot of businesses that are immediately closed without any chance of fighting for it. And then you got the mom and pops, the brick and mortar stores that they still have a chance for fighting, but there also is, it's very difficult when you're struggling to pay rent month to month, and then suddenly it's the end of the month and you've had no new customers this month, and you go from just scraping ends to only paying half of your bills. That's a drastic change, and there's just nothing you can do. And for those people, it just such panic, such despair. And so my heart breaks to a lot of them. It's trying to figure out, okay, what do we do now? How can we get out of it? Because at the end of the day, we still have our bodies, we still have our lives, and we still have the optimism and ambition to create something. And so it's figuring how can we recover and how can we take the next steps to plan for a better future.
I love what you're saying, and I just kind of have an offside question about how you. I have to think about it for a second, because I want to say something along the lines of, like, you haven't been an entrepreneur your whole life. Like, you appear, I don't know how old you are, and you certainly don't have to tell me, but you still appear young, you know, like you've been an entrepreneur for a decade. And so there was a point in time, like I can really relate to this, where I looked at working for another person and I was like, I'm being paid $9 an hour to do this thing, whatever it is. And they're charging $35 an hour to do this thing. And I'm like, why am I only being paid $9 an hour and the rest is going to the company? And I thought, that's not fair. Like, okay, I'm going to do something else. So I guess my question for you is, you know, in the beginning, when you decided to become an entrepreneur, and there, like, I imagine my story, I mean, there was struggle, lots of struggle there, and trying to like organize it and build this and trial and error. And I guess I'm just interested in understanding in kind of a Cole's Notes kind of way, what it was like for you to navigate those challenges as a, you know, starting entrepreneur, but then changing businesses and trying different things until you got here. Because there's lots of challenges in that process. And the reason I ask that question is because there's a ton of people going through those challenges right now. What was that like for you?
So I started when I was 17 years old. And right now I am 26 years old. So 9-10-ish year gap there. Over that time, I've actually tried about over 15 businesses. And kind of the way you do it is you find an opportunity, something that makes you fascinated, that excites you, and you focus on making that work. And you likely won't succeed because we all just get excited over the simplest things. Let's just roll some paper beads and sell those. But that alone, there's a whole bunch more that you have to learn around the business entirely. But the main thing is to start something, start somewhere, no matter how small it is, just try, because you start picking up the small pieces and learning. And so 15 different businesses later, what you end up doing is it's like a mouse in a maze and the cheese is in the middle, and you're trying to find the best path, if you keep feeding yourself information of what works and doesn't work, eventually you slowly move towards what does work over time. And it really is just feeding yourself more information, get more information, keep learning, keep moving, keep trying things. Try one thing, try another thing, determine which one's better. The thing is, you don't necessarily have to spend too much time thinking about the future, but spending more time doing, because when you spend more time doing, you will naturally navigate towards what works. So when you're saying about the Coles Notes and what I did, I started with video game development. I was really excited about video games, and there was like a Minecraft replica, and I was really excited about that. It was called Total Miner on Xbox. So I learned how to make my own video game, and I released 2 indie games on Xbox. The first one took one entire year of just learning how to code just because I was passionate about it, and I ended up releasing it. The next one, I said, okay, now that I know what I'm doing, let's see how fast I could release a game. And within 1 weekend, I mean, it was a pretty terrible game, but I made another game and released it and actually got through. And I'm like, wow, I made an Xbox game in 3 days by learning. And so you can take an entire year's worth of learning. Once you know it, no matter what, you will always know it for the rest of your life. And you'll always have that knowledge. So what's the worst thing about learning? And then now that you know it, it's super fast to do once you have it. And so from there, I mean, Xbox closed their XNA video game development for indies at that point. So I moved on. I went on app development. I went to school for computer programming, did that. And then in the meantime, I had a couple of businesses, one e-commerce related, and I started importing, wholesaling, started going to trade shows. And through the trade shows and wholesaling, at that point was when I started to get into physical branding, because when I was at trade shows and I was helping other trade show business owners there, mainly with them, the thing that they were all looking for was to have a better display, a better brand. A lot of them, their displays was a white vinyl banner with some sticker letters hanging on it, or a lot of stuff from Dollarama put on their display. They don't necessarily know how to build an appealing brand. But the funny thing is, someone with just $500 can get this beautifully done professional display with a tension fabric tablecloth, retractable banners, and it's a difference of looking like a smaller business to a much more expensive business. And I guess the concept is, when someone comes to your booth and they're looking to spend money, just by the looks of your booth alone, how much would they be prepared to spend? People who go up to a small mom and pop booth, usually it's under $100. Sometimes it's a couple $100. But if you go into a jewelry store and you're like a customer that would go into a jewelry store, you'd spend thousands depending on what you're getting if you're that type of customer. So the main thing is to have if you were a jewelry store and you had a lower quality brand, you want your brand to match the value of the products you're offering. And as a mom and pop store in a smaller business, if you're offering really good quality products that you want to sell for a couple $100, well, then you might as well have a brand display in a booth that can really promote your worth and the value of your products to your customers, is what I'm getting at. And so by building up that value in your worth, then it's very easy to demonstrate that to your customers just from a simple display.
Right. You know, and I'm thinking about the people who are starting out, like the brand new entrepreneurs who have said, like, that's it. Like, I've lost my job, or, I was laid off and I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm going to start my own virtual something. And, I know that for a lot of folks that I have talked to who are like interested in doing that, because now I'm in a position where I'm always careful to be really humble about what I've done and what I have. And I believe that this has all been a gift that's been provided to me. These opportunities are provided to me, and then I do something with them, right?
Yeah,
like we have a feeling inside and we say, oh, I really like video games, like you said. And it's like, I'm going to try this. The fact that you like video games, or that you were drawn to them, you didn't create that. That was just something, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just my viewpoint. And we are drawn to something, and then that's a gift to us, that we now realize that we're drawn to this and we're going to do something with this, and then we put the hard work in. But it's all a result of gifts that are provided to us, that come from like whoever made the first video game in the world ever. Like, we can thank that guy for creating the concept that now I'm drawn to. So so I say everything I say, I try and say very humbly, because I believe that it's the gifts of what I've been given that have allowed me to work hard and build what we're doing now. So what's happened in transition of, we have obviously the counseling company, and it started in office, and then I moved to Vancouver Island, and I said to those people, I said, do you want to come along? But it's going to be digital. And I had 10 clients at the time, and 8 of them said, okay, we can try that. And so that was really neat. And then it's blossomed from there, from just being a me thing, and then hiring other people, and now having a team of people who do this work. And of course, we do individual counseling, couples counseling, marital, family counseling, group counseling. I mean, you name it, we cover all the issues. And it's amazing, because everybody who is hired here has some type of different specialty. So they can do things I can't do, right?
Exactly.
And then we come together as a team and strengthen numbers. So what's also happened, and this is the point of why I just said all of that, is I've had a few people come forward and say, I want to start some kind of virtual business of some kind. Can you help me do that? And I say, well, I can certainly try. I can certainly, I have this decade of experience of building business, and now I have 7 years of running a digital business with a team. Absolutely. So my point is that if you're just starting out in a virtual way and have no idea what you're doing, because guess what? I didn't either. And Kevin, I don't know if you did when you started out, like you're just trying to figure it out, right? If you're just starting out, you can do it quicker than, say, Kevin or I had to do it, because we didn't really know. I shouldn't speak for you. Most people don't know what they're doing if they're just venturing into a new topic. We have to read a lot of books. You said it took you a year to learn how to code, right? And I know that if you ask questions and you consult with others who have done it, then you can access this information and put it into practice a heck of a lot quicker than if you were just trying to muddle through all by yourself, right? So for sometimes what happens, Kevin, I've found, is that people say to me, this is way too big. I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to start. I don't know what questions to ask. And I really want my own digital business, because I don't want to go back to work at this office that I hated. I don't want to wake up in the morning and go to work in my 9-to-5 job. Now, I don't want to say that 9-to-5 jobs aren't valuable, because I think they are. They definitely are. But what I'm saying is, I'm speaking to those people who are interested in starting a virtual business, and you can do that quicker than say I had to do it. It took me years and years, because you can consult, right? And I don't know, Kevin, how you feel about that, but I want to speak to those people who are interested. But if people hear, oh, well, I have to start my own thing and it's going to take me years and years, they're just going to turn this video off and they're not going to look at it again. You don't have to spend that much time. You can actually do different things quicker, because the world is becoming more efficient as we learn more. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Well, while I've said I had 15 businesses, while I'm not doing them anymore, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't good, financially stable businesses. At the end of the day, you grow and you grow. You grow from a $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year, 30, 50, 100, and you keep growing the business. And that's the point. Find out what works, what level you can take it. And if you reach a ceiling, then you find a different vehicle to take it to the next ceiling. And that's one of the most important things. At one point, I've had up to 13 staff members just literally importing fidget spinners and traveling to trade shows selling fidget spinners. Like Edmonton K-Days, Calgary Stampede, up to like 1.5 million attendees per year. It's easy money. On the other side of it, for people starting off, as you mentioned, I'm a big fan of psychology. And while it's not as proven as some of the others like Big Five, what I love looking at Myers-Briggs, because it has like archetypes, and there's 16 different archetypes, and a person's more like one than others. And what fascinates me about it is there's like this wheel you can see of all the 16 different personality types and a percentage of population for each one. What it reminds me of is if you have one of each personality type sitting on a round table, usually opposite personality types will never see eye to eye. Let's say like thinkers versus feelers, introverts versus extroverts. They're very different demographics at the end of the day. And while there's certain things that they will see eye to eye, the main thing is that If you only align yourself with your specific focus, you're missing out on the other 15 types of people that exist. So you don't want to have too much of a niche market. And so the most important thing is to work with other personality types too when building your business. Another way to put it is if there's 16 personality types in a Myers-Briggs and we're only one of them, and each of the personality types specialize in their own unique area, let's say whether each one usually, yeah, they all very much specialize in whatever they like best. I could give examples, but it's just so broad and generic at that. So the easiest way I'm saying is if we're only good at 1/16 of what we do, then it's good not to be overwhelmed that you can't do everything, but find other people to help you with. It's really what I'm getting at.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's so true. Like this idea that, oh, we have to do this all by ourselves. Like that's a mentality I had when I was a teenager.
We need help.
Right? Like, no,
simple as that.
No, Mom, I'm going to do it my own way. Right. I was so stubborn. And now today, although, you know, I do a lot in the way of like building the original vision of the organization, which belonged to me, I do it with everyone who now joins our team. So yeah, you know, ask questions. And so it's the same thing as what I said earlier about people who are wanting to start their own businesses, like reach out and ask. And I don't care who you ask. You can ask us, you can ask other people. There's lots of people who have been where you are now. And further from that, there are businesses that are now failing, right? Because they've had to close their doors. I saw a post for a coffee shop in Lethbridge, and they're like, we're really, you know, really sad to report that this has just been too much, and we have to close the doors. They were around for a few years, a very well revered coffee shop, you know, downtown Lethbridge. And I thought that was really sad. Now, you know, how can those people repurpose their vision and do something a bit different, right? And so if you're in a position where your business is also failing, like ask questions, reach out. There's a repurpose for your skills. Ask for help, right? And when we experience loss as human beings, you know, you said you're interested in psychology, and I think like we all experience, you know, loss in a different way, but we all experience grief, like the actual fundamental feeling of grief. And what we do with that can determine how well we do in 6 months from now, right? We can allow our grief to kind of take over, and then we give up. Some people just like throw their hands up and they're like, well, I don't know what to do now. Like, I just don't care anymore. And that's where depression can set in, because when anxiety heightens, oftentimes we don't know what to do with that. And so a lot of these people, I'm certainly hopeful that they're not just going to give up, you know, throw in the towel and say, well, that's that, and I'm going to take all this loss, transform it into something else, because you can. And I think about your story, Kevin, and it's similar to mine in a lot of ways. You just took what you were passionate about and you tried it out. And then you were like, oh, even though the first game, I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like, it wasn't that good. Then you released another one.
To be honest.
And, yeah. And you made it through. It's like the first thing that we produce might need to suck for us to learn what we need to learn to, right? Like, it's okay. And some people say to me, they're like, well, Amanda, it's failure. I'm such a failure. And I'm like, oh my goodness. No, you're not. You are learning. If you have learned one thing that's valuable for you in what you have been creating, even if it doesn't work out, that's a win. That's a huge win, right? So I guess the theme of this conversation that I'm kind of getting at this point anyway is like reaching out to those who are in this position of what I call the FITs. And normally I would say that word, but you know, this is a video cast, so I'm not going to. But like, if you're in a place of giving up and you're just like, I don't care anymore, I encourage you to reconsider that. Because someone like Kevin and someone like myself, like, look at what is possible. Kevin, you're only 26 years old. Like, you're like 10 years younger than me.
There's one rule I love to live by. And for everyone who says you can't, I usually respond with, well, when we were born, we couldn't walk until we did. We crawled,
Exactly.
and then suddenly we started walking. What happened there? What changed? We just learned
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. This is another question I have for you. Have you ever had an experience where someone has said to you, Kevin, that's ridiculous. Like, that's such a stupid idea. Like, you're not going to go
Daily?
anywhere with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And then so does that affect you?
Or
When you
I
like,
could never do that.
yeah, yeah. And how do you deal with that when people are saying, they're putting you down and they're saying that, you're never going to get anywhere doing that. How can you possibly think you'll be successful?
At the end of the day, I truly believe that, so we're all dealt with like a deck of cards and we're all drawn a hand at any given time. And I believe that personally, and the reason why I have no regrets is, given the hand of cards I've been dealt, I always believe that I've played the best cards that I've had in my hand at any time. And I believe that everyone else plays the best cards that they have in their hand, for no one truly chooses to suffer. And so what that means to me is that when other people come to me and they tell me this, while sure I could let their words affect me, I know that I spent my entire life studying and researching what future decisions I'm going to make and what is best for both myself and those around me. And at certain times, maybe I don't have the right answer, I don't know the answer, but that's something I have to learn as to why that isn't the right path or why I shouldn't do that. And I will listen to them, but I'll also do research to those that say why I should do that and what are the good reasons to doing this, and then weigh those decisions, weigh what I want to do with my life, because it is my life at the end of the day. As much as it's easy to say we owe ourselves to other people, truly the only person we owe to ourselves is ourselves and self-love. And so to keep pushing forward into the areas and aspects of our life that we feel best suit who we are and our needs. The main thing is, if we are not passionate, fascinated, and motivated to do what we're doing in life, we'll never achieve it. So to spend your life doing what someone else says, you'll actually be doing yourself a disservice and a worse favor doing something that doesn't motivate you or fascinate you, than whether it's your own business or a different job, something that truly does fascinate you, because then you'll truly excel in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate this, and you're speaking to my heartstrings here, because like my story, I can relate on so many levels to what you're talking about, and I think it's beautiful to see someone who's so young, stepping into just exploration, right? Oftentimes, I think, not with everybody, there's a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I just love that, but a lot of people, they'll do what they're told. And it's like, oh, by their parents, by their teachers or educators, and they say, well, you're really good at this, so you should work for so and so or whatever. I think it's really beautiful when a young person says, you know what, this is more what I'm into, and I need to do this for myself. And if there's a loss there, like there's learning in everything that we do, and so it's a win. It's not, there's no failure here. It's a win. And then they take that and they grow with it. But I also love the idea of people who have followed what other people have told them and said, okay, you should become a lawyer, or you should become an accountant, or you should whatever. And they go, okay. And then they do that. And by the time they're 45, they go like, I hate this. Like, I'm so tired of this. Or it doesn't even have to be 45. It could be like any age, but I'm really tired of this. And then there you go. And then they step into something that's more aligned with their truth. And truth is a huge thing. And how we know what our truth is we know what we're interested in. We know what we're drawn to. I recently, it wasn't long ago, I talked to an accountant, and it wasn't on this video cast. It was in a private conversation. I had talked to this accountant, and he said, like, I hate my job. I'm like, okay, well, what do you like? What are you drawn? And he's like, well, I'm drawn to things that have nothing to do with numbers. I'm like, well, let's talk about that. Let's look at what your options are, because the whole world can open up if you start being honest with yourself, right? So it's just, I guess what I'm getting at is just there's unlimited potential that all of us have if we start asking questions, not only to ourselves primarily, and saying like, what is it that we want? What is it that we like? Just like you said earlier, like taking a problem and saying, what are the options for solution here? But also we're asking questions outwardly, saying, okay, you've been here. It's like joining a joining a Facebook group that has a bunch of like-minded people on the same topic in this Facebook group, and like learning from each other. That's free, right? Like, you don't have to put money into that to learn things. So, I guess I'm saying, like, as far as the business side goes, and I want to talk personally how you've been affected, but the business side, like, don't give up, right? I know that this stuff is hard. Just like I said, beginning of this meeting, I cried when we had to close our doors for the cycling studio. And I didn't just cry once. Like, that was really, really hard after everything we've done to build and bolster that brand and the community that we served. That was very difficult. And now, as I've allowed my grief and come into a different position in my life, I'm like, okay, how do we take this brand and do something different with it? How do we, and so being really creative on what our possibilities are. And of course, we will reopen in some way, and it'll likely be way better than it was before, because we've taken all this grief, we processed it, and now we have this new opening. It's like the sun is rising, Exactly. Look at all these opportunities, look at all these gifts that were being provided. So yeah, lots of loss, but there's just so much beauty. I don't mean to be cliche or anything, but there's so much beauty on the horizon. You just have to look for it.
That's true.
Right? So Kevin, you can certainly say, if you have anything to say about what I just said, then please feel free. But the next question I'm going to ask you is just personally, like, as a human being, how have you been affected by the pandemic, and what's it been like for you?
Yeah, definitely. Regarding to what you just said, and to respond to that first, it reminds me of a story of one of my good friends here, Christopher Wills and Zach Isaacs. They really liked wine so much that they made their own, and they were just having fun making a bunch of wine. But then everyone's around them's like, whoa, you make really good wine, homemade wine. And they're like, yeah, we know it, we put quality and effort into this.
Right.
But then they're like, no, seriously, you should sell this. So they started thinking, well, what if we sold it? So they looked into it. They applied to become, and ended up becoming, Manitoba's only winery at that time. And to say that Manitoba had its own winery is cool. So they were young kids. I think they're like 17. I'm not sure their exact age, but they were very young themselves. But when you do a hell of a lot of research, put a lot of quality into something because you're making it for your friends, your family, you want them to have the best quality. You're not doing it to sell it, but because you're truly passionate about it. Now when they were dealing with Manitoba Liquor Marts, a government agency, they originally scoffed at it and was like, we're really not going to sell your stuff because we don't believe it'll sell. But then through the amount of friends and family they had and getting community support to motivate them by talking to people around them, having them sample at farmers markets, and getting the vibe up around it and the hype up, they were eventually able to sell out faster than Liquor Marts were able to keep them in stock within just a couple months of them opening. And Liquor Marts are like, okay, we need as much liquor from you. And they're like, they knew they could supply a certain amount, but they're like, hold on, we can only give you 60 cases, and create a sort of demand for it. And they're like, fine, we'll take the 60 cases or whatever. So then they create supply and demand and build that up. And now at this moment, as far as I know, they have a very beautiful, successful brand, but it's really inspiring to see how a couple of young kids with a passion for making wine created Manitoba's first successful winery.
Wow. Can you tell us what the name of the brand is?
Shrugging Doctor Beverage Company.
Okay, well, check it out, everybody. Just to support the agency, because I really believe in supporting the little guys. And by little guys, we can become bigger in terms of this the economy or in business. But I support homegrown businesses
definitely
more than I do the bigger box chains.
Exactly.
But the bigger box chains also were started by one person or a group of people in the beginning, like Walmart. That's Walmart is a name, is like two names or something. I don't know exactly, don't quote me, but everything is started at some point. So I think something you said, and then we'll get into the personal side, I guess, but something you said is this idea of passion. So I would strongly recommend, like I agreed with what you said, I would strongly recommend that if you are passionate about something, to do it because you're passionate about it, not because you want to make money or because you want to get fame or you want to, you know, have more followers or whatever,
Exactly.
because that stuff doesn't, like, to me, people can like fight with me about this if they want. That stuff doesn't matter nearly as much as doing something you love, because if you're doing something that you actually don't like that much for fame or finances or followers,
You'll get
you're
bored.
you're gonna get bored, you're gonna burn out, you're not gonna do a very good job. And so if you're passionate about it, you can wake up every morning and say, like, I am looking forward to this day because I
Exactly.
love this. This is not work for me. And then the cherry on top is the followers that show up. And it's like, that's great. Now more people are going to see how passionate we are. And because we're passionate, we're going to be able to deliver this in a fantastic way, as opposed to someone who's just doing it for the money. So I like that. You said it's not just for the money, although we do have to pay our bills and things, but it's for a ton of other things, right? So if you're starting a business or you have a business that's not doing well that you want to repurpose, ask yourself if you're passionate about it. And if you could take or leave it, I would encourage you to look at starting something different or transitioning into something different, right? Because that's where, and I don't mean money when I say this, but that's where the gold is. And by not meaning money, I mean like heart-centered, spiritual, like connection to other human beings and to a purpose. That's where the gold is in passion. So I love that you said that, Kevin. This is great.
And for a lot of people, they also, if they are getting distracted from their work or their business frequently, for me, it means you're not passionate or fascinated enough about it. And so to switch to what you're distracted about, if something else is distracting and fascinating you more, then you should focus on that. But of course, not too much where you're constantly switching business models too, because you're constantly switching your focus, but to find a balance between the two where it's something that you enjoy enough that you don't easily get distracted.
Yeah. And even if, like, you know, there's business owners who start different businesses and then hire others to run businesses that they say they might not be as interested in at the time. So consistency is extremely important. So if you start switching business models, or you get kind of lazy or disinterested in business A or whatever, well, your reputation is going to suffer as a result of that. So hire someone to do that stuff and move on to something you love more. Just like I was saying, or sell it, right? Like I ran a cleaning company when I was 20. And that was what I was doing. I was working for $9 an hour and they were charging 35. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to charge 35. And I had my first client like that. And then that person referred me to her sister. And then, like, I still know these people years and years later. And I was cleaning their houses once a week for 35 bucks. But for a starving student that I was at the time, that was amazing to make $35 an hour. That was crazy, right? And then after, 4 years during my undergrad, I wasn't interested in having it anymore. And so I sold it. I sold it for a very small amount of money. I basically said, pay the $2,000 off on the credit card. And, but it helped me big time pay for my undergrad. And then I, instead of putting my efforts into that, because I was tired, I remember waking up in the morning going like, I'm actually not interested in this. Like, I don't want to get any phone call from anyone saying there's a hair in my bathtub. I don't want that phone call. So I'm going to hand it off, and this other owner is going to deal with that and work with the staff, because we had 8 house cleaners by that time. Anyway, so I said, you can have this. Because it served its purpose for me. I don't even want to make money off of this. I don't care. I'm going to start a counseling company. And then I started this company that we currently now have a handful of staff in also. So yeah. So anyway, I digress. I'm kind of like going all over the place.
Beautiful.
So passionate about this stuff. Transition into something else, but make sure that you're doing your due diligence for the reputation of the original company, whether it's hiring someone to run it or selling it or closing it or something like that, right? So for you, Kevin, just personally, how have you been affected and how are you navigating that with friends, family? What's been going on there?
So it's kind of difficult because I'm fairly extroverted. I want to be around people all the time. I actually find that when I am home alone, I get a little antsy because all the things I enjoy doing with other people or for other people. I'm very much like, if there was a standard role I fit in, I'm much of like the supporter. I love supporting other people and being with other people and supporting them. And so it has been a fairly difficult where during these warmer months, every month I'd host a monthly bonfire. I could get like 35, 40 people coming, and we'd all have an amazing time. Roast a lot of hot dogs, marshmallows. Yeah. But now I can't do that. I can't have monthly get-togethers for creatives to discuss creative events and things happening in Winnipeg. There's no concerts, music festivals, nightlife. So at the end of the day, it's, well, what do I do? And there's a dramatic shift into it. But it's where you put your energy too. If you have a lot of pent-up energy, exercise is huge. It's at least warm outside. It's not winter. We can go run outside. I finally took the time to set my at-home gym, so that'll be nice. It's basically a Kijiji treadmill and a heavy bag and some free weights. So yeah, you get some basic stuff, but it's just enough to get you going and keep you moving, burn out that energy. For supporting people, I mean, Facebook feeds are a thing. Everyone's commenting about stuff. You can post your feedback there, but you always have that list of friends constantly talking back and forth with you with their own struggles. And something as simple as just checking in, saying, hey, how are you doing? How are you coping with this? And talking with people, reminding them that they might be struggling, but at the end of the day, they're still loved by everyone around them and are truly deeply cared for by those around them. And reminding them as well that, like, we're going to make it through this, regardless how difficult it sounds at times. Opening up that connection, they'll open it up with you, and you start that conversation, talking, working things out. And who's to say you can't have a virtual meeting? Zoom is a great platform for that, where everyone can join. Skype is another. Have a virtual meeting. You're all cooking each other your own kitchens, but you're all doing it over a virtual thing as well. So there's a whole bunch of options to get that level of connection. The main thing is being okay with changing and doing things differently while trying to find out what works for you. And who knows, you might kind of like it. You might say, well, let's do this more often because traveling takes 2 hours of our time. Maybe it's easier if we just do this over Skype one day a month or week or what have you. And it's trying new things to see what works. That's really what life's all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, it's something that we've been doing too, because I would consider myself an extrovert, but also an introvert depending on the circumstance, right? So maybe somewhere in the middle. But we've had a few friend gatherings where we play digital games together. So, you know, so we're all at our own houses, like across the island, and we have some friends that are over in Vancouver that have joined. I've invited friends from Alberta and what may have you. So we all meet and we all have our snacks at home and whatever, and we just play these games, and they're very interesting. I mean, it's not the same. I really miss the, you know, I've said this a couple times, but getting up and going in and going into the kitchen and you're preparing food or whatever, and you're talking to one person who's at the party, and then you go back to the where everybody is at the bonfire or whatever. Like, I miss that stuff, and that's coming. We will be able to do that.
It'll just be bigger and better than ever when it does come.
You know, and people will appreciate it more, the ability to connect with others. I think that we, as human beings, I have anyway, taken for granted the ability to, how easy it was to connect. And I see now how valuable time is with other people. And so I'm excited for that. But, you know, honestly, from my perspective, and again, don't quote me here, I don't know, but, you know, if there's a second wave, like summer's canceled, like there's not, you know, music festivals are going to be, you know, level 4, I guess, or whatever they're calling it, phase 4. But actually I saw this thing, I don't know if you've heard about this, probably, but like drive-in music festivals. Have you seen that?
It's so cool though. It works, right? It's about changing and adapting.
Yeah, changing and adapting. So that's going to be a thing in Canada. And so that's going to be really, we can only do what we can do. And at some point, I mean, the gift here is that this is going to change back to what we could do before. We just can't have that now. So if we can accept what we have in front of us, do our best with it, it'll be such a gift when everything, yeah, have fun. And it'll be such a gift when things open up again
Mhm.
and we can go to restaurants and have a table of 10 people and have this great night, or go to music festivals, or have these trade shows and things like that. So yeah, so you really have a fantastic attitude about it. I really appreciate
Thanks.
that. And
As with you.
what's real, yeah, what's really cool for me, Kevin, is that we just met. Like, we just met today, and I just heard about you this morning. So it's just amazing how quickly you can make connections. Now, when I, move on in my life, I'm going to think about what you do. I'm going to think about this conversation and the ways I've been motivated by this conversation, like strength balls. Like, that's a great idea. I'm going to think about that. Right? I love it. So as I think about the people who are watching this, we have talked to, people struggling in their work life and whatnot. We have talked to people about how to navigate in some ways, the lack of like physical connection we can have with others. Can you, Kevin, put into kind of a nice bow what you said to people about how to navigate the pandemic if they're having trouble?
Okay. One thing to say first as well
Sure.
is the only thing I feel people really need to make a difference in the world is simply to show up. At the end of the day, too, if you really want to make a difference, showing up is step one. If you don't show up, well, then it's difficult for anything to happen. But when you do show up, you never know what is going to happen. You might be socially anxious, not wanting to talk to anyone, but then you might find another socially anxious person exactly like you with the exact same mindset, and you can be socially anxious together, just making weird quirks off the crowd. But then you just meet your new best friend that ends up being with you for the rest of your life. You never know. So just showing up is just absolutely wonderful if you can find just a little bit of energy to do that. Everything else just happens naturally, and make sure it happens naturally. You don't want to force anything. So then can you repeat your question again?
Oh, it's just about kind of taking the theme of what we've talked about, or the themes,
Okay.
and just saying in a Coles Notes way, like what people can be doing in an active way to brave the storm until this is all over.
Exercise. Work together with friends and family, letting them check in with them to make sure that they're okay, that they're able to also move forward, eating healthy, having a proper diet. There's one thing I love to say is whenever I have like mental fatigue, or I'm really tired, or just dizzy, or whatever have you, I have this saying where it's like heal the body to heal the mind. Anytime your mind feels less than optimal, focus on healing the body by giving it what it needs, which is, it needs very little at the end of the day. But everyone neglects things like sleep. Everyone neglects things like exercise or eating, but it's a vehicle that literally drives us through our life. We might as well treat it to the best respect that we can give it and honor it for what it's able to do for us.
Yeah,
well
absolutely. And you know what I'll add to that too is like, don't give up. If you're feeling really down, and there's a lot of people who are really down. So just, step up, show up, ask questions, take your multivitamins, reach out. We don't have to allow this pandemic to defeat us. Yeah. So I really appreciate, I appreciate the motivation for myself too, because I felt that too. And these videos have helped me, get to a place where I can be really motivated like I am today. Like, I'm really excited about what we're doing here. And I'm really excited about, who might watch this video and find meaning in it. And I'm really excited that I met you. Yeah. And I met you through someone who, I've known most of my life, but who was watching these videos and said, hey, I really like what you're doing. I think you should talk to Kevin. And I was like, that's great. Like, thank you so much. Yeah. So I want to do a shout out to Chantel and thank her for connecting us for sure.
Thanks, Chantel.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that's great, Kevin. I think I'm going to keep you on my radar for sure about what you're doing. I'm excited to share this. If, like I said, if you want to add me on Facebook and I can tag you in the video when it's posted. I will be your Facebook friend. That's great. That's great. And then we can stay in contact that way. I'm going to really think about what we might be able to do for branding for this company. Even though we are a digital company, we can still do creative things. And I'm not sure what those are, but yeah, like, I'm just going to think about it. So that's good. I guess this might be a really natural place to close. And you can reach out anytime too if you ever have any questions, or like you want to just say hi or whatever. I am in Winnipeg once a year usually. Now, of course, I live in BC and we're not able to travel. My mom lives out there. My sister lives out there. I have friends who live out there. But I won't, you know, when I'm out there again, it would be really neat to meet you in person.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, so I'll show you a message or something along the way. But thank you so much for volunteering your time today. I know that you probably got lots going on, but super grateful on behalf of myself and anybody who follows our videos. So that's great, Kevin. Thanks, and I'll talk to you at some point in the future.
You too. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.